today we are going to talk about fire detection and prevention using thermal cameras. So I think today we are going to talk about a very special topic. Let's talk about the today content. So today content is first we are talking about overview of thermal camera systems, and next we are talking about product range and model selection part. And the third, we are going to talk about the application scenarios. And the fourth one is the special thing we are arranging practical session for today. So I think this is the special part for today, practical configuration.
We have to give a clear understanding about how the thermography works, because any object in the world having the temperature above the absolute zero, which is the minus 273 Celsius, it can emit a detectable amount of infrared radiation. So we all know what is radiation. Radiation is some sort of energy. So once the heat is absorbed to a object and it is temperature is getting high, so this infrared radiation can be emitted. So these infrared also we can treat it as some sort of a wave as well. We will discuss about that Avanta in the upcoming slide. So what we do is we use this radiation to identify the temperature. Beauty of this is Avanta, it is not visible for humans' eyes. So we use some special kind of hardware to generate the thermography image, and especially this is achieved by understanding the difference between the temperature of each point. So if you are looking at a table and if you have some objects in the table, some objects might be hotter than the other objects. So the emitting size of the infrared radiation will be differ from place to place. So we can identify that and we can get an idea about the surface temperature of that particular setup of each point. So that is the basic technology. You have seen certain pictures here. So some pictures are in color form and some pictures are in black and white form. So each color form or even black and white form is representing the amount of radiation that they are getting from the particular spot. So I think with that, we can get a clear understanding about how the temperature principle works. But we need to know how exactly this technology works with the camera. So in the next slide, Davanta, we are talking about principle of the thermal camera. So as we all know, the visible light source, we can get it as an artificial source, or it can be a natural source like sun. What will happen is when light is emitted, it will come to the surface of an object and reflect to a human eye, so human can see what is there. But the problem is these light waves are in the visible range for the human eye. But if you take the IR, it is not visible for the human eye. But this special camera that we are using for this particular thermal technology can detect these infrared waves. And even when there's no light, let's say we are in a very dark room and in the center of it, somebody is making tea and you don't have any visible light to see what's going on. Suppose you have a thermal camera. So this infrared radiation coming from this kettle can be detected from this camera even it is pitch dark, because the ability that the infrared can be captured from this temperature camera. So let's look at a similar scenario in the next picture. So we are just looking at so on the top of the cooker, we have turned on one part of it, and obviously this part is hotter compared to the other areas. So how the thermal camera sees this? You can see the thermal camera sees this exactly like this. So all other areas are in bluish or dark color, and the high temperature areas in more bright colors and reddish colors. So we can actually change these color schemes according to our requirement, because it's all about how the temperature is being detected by the camera. So here you can see this one particular example, the cooker which is turned on having a high temperature range. You can see the temperature range. The highest point is around 133 Celsius and the lowest point is around 20 Celsius. But in the cooker which is not turned on, we can precisely see it is around 37.6 is the highest point. So with this kind of technology, we are able to identify the surface temperature of any object as long as the radiation coming from that surface is reaching to the camera. That's the only requirement. So let's dive in little deep into this and see how the entire camera works as a principle. So this thermal radiation, as I mentioned, it is different compared to the natural light. So what we want to do is, first thing we want to do is, we don't want any natural light. It is disturbing. We want to filter them out. So this infrared have a wavelength of 8 to 14 nanometers or 8 to 14, micrometers. And we have a very specific lens called germanium lens, which is able to filter out all the visible light waves and get in only the infrared. So this lens is used on the thermal camera to filter out all the visible lights and only get the infrared signals into it. Then we have a special, in camera we know we have CMOS sensor to capture the visible light, or some sensor, right? In thermal camera also we have a sensor. That sensor is called as vanadium oxide uncooled focal plane array. It's an array of uncooled vanadium oxides. Here, depending on this array, there are various resolutions. As you can see, the resolution is not too big. Nowadays, we are talking about 4K, like full HD. But if you see, the resolution is like 160 by 120 pixels, 384 by 288, 640 by 512 is the maximum. Why? Because this array is formed out of the sensors, and that array is forming the temperature map. So each point is detecting the IR waves coming towards that way. So that is how the entire thing works. So that's why we are a little bit limited in terms of resolution. After this focal plane array captures the infrared waves, those data is sent into a image signal processor, which is ISP, and ISP is responsibility to take these signals in and convert it to some form of digital output. And this SoC is responsible to convert that digital data into a stream, so we can receive it as a video. So as a summary, we are not going into very deep technology wise data, but as an overview for you to explain this to a customer very easily, to show that you know about the technology and you are confident about the technology. You can talk about these things freely. There's a germanium lens just to filter out the natural light source and other things, and it can only take in infrared. Then you have the uncooled focal plane array to capture these infrared signals coming in, and from there it is sent to an image signal processor to convert into a digital signal, and SoC converts it to a stream and sends to the whatever the way place that you are monitoring. So this is the basic principle, and we use this technology for many benefits. For example, today our training major focus is Avanta. We are talking about fire prevention and fire detection, but you have to keep in mind the temperature cameras are not only for fire prevention or fire detection. It can be used for many other things as well. Before we check out all these aspects, there's a question from our audience. What about the durability of the sensor at high form of heat or high light or any such quality limit for temperature? Yes, I think it is a very valid question. So if you take one of our product sheets, every product, not only thermal camera, it has a working temperature range that the camera can be installed, the environment temperature. So one thing you have to make sure is wherever you are fixing the camera, the principle is like you fix the camera a little bit far away from the scene, right? So if you want to monitor a storage area, you fix it on the towards the roof. So fire prone area is somewhat far away from the camera. So when there's a fire, the camera can still detect, but the effects of that fire will not affect the lens. And if the environment temperature is high, definitely we have to check our data sheet and make sure that product can tolerate that environment temperature. Definitely you should not point the camera directly into the fire or get in contact with the fire. That will definitely destroy the lens and the camera. So we obviously fix it at a distance, and definitely we capture the heat waves from a distance. So that way, when there's a fire, as long as the fire is not reaching to the camera is safe. That's the basic principle. And definitely with the high form of light, there's no any harm, no any issue, because high form of light is filtered out with this germanium lens. So thank you for asking that valuable question, Mr. Ibrahim. And let's go ahead, Avanta, we talk about the areas that we can utilize this performance series thermal features. So one thing is the short range parameter depends. Means at night, when the light is low, people having little difficulty to see using the normal CCTV cameras. Unless you are using a color view, nowadays we have technologies like color view. But even some people might try to fool a color view, like they might try to dress like an animal or try to intrude into your property. That kind of thing can happen. So human body is having some sort of temperature. So we are also emitting this IR radiation from us. So these cameras can be detected. This kind of a human behavior can be detected. So the temperature camera can be used for detect this human behavior, and we can analyze whether it's a human or how it is moving or how the movement is taking place. So definitely we can use the temperature cameras for the short range parameter detection. And then other thing is the temperature measurement. So now it's majorly used in especially factories and where there are high traffic. People want to rapidly monitor the temperature of the crowd. So we have cameras now which can support up to 30 persons per second that they can detect the temperature of the forehead. So temperature detection, and it can give you alert if a person is having a high temperature than the standard temperature. We can immediately identify the persons who are having a fever and isolate them and take necessary action, especially with the current ongoing situation of COVID. Another thing is the indoor fire prevention, which is the topic that we are going to talk today. Definitely, we have so many mechanisms to prevent a property from a fire. We have the fire alarm systems, we have the smoke detectors, but out of all those, there can be little slip in the cup, because sometimes there can be a failure in a sensor. Sometimes there is a smoke, but the smoke will take little time to reach up to the sensor, then the damage is done. So it is always good to have another redundancy system in place. So this is actually not even, you can use this as a primary system, not as a redundancy, because the temperature efficiency, measurement efficiency is very good. So at a glance, we will show in the demonstration, at a glance, you can identify a fire. I think that is a huge advantage when you, especially if you want to cover fire prone sites, that there are fire hazards. So you can freely go and recommend to the customers, especially who are doing waste management, who are storing fire prone equipment, and who are running high temperature machinery. You can definitely introduce one of these cameras, and it will be a fabulous solution for them to easily get the alerts to their mobile or their whatever the monitoring station. Do the prevention, because the prevention is the key, because we want to prevent any major damages from the fire. One thing is we can take the action before the fire starts. Not only we have the fire alarm, but we now have the smoking detection as well. If there's a smoke, so the video analysis, otherwise the events can be generated for smoke as well. And we have the 24/7 real-time alarm, and we can deliver that alarm to you in many ways, not only as a siren. We have a flashlight. We can deliver it to your mobile through our High Connect app. You can receive to your monitoring station through HIG Central or IMS 4000. Not only that, you can even link that to one of our industry leading alarm panels and receive this as a phone call. So there are many options when it comes to configuring this kind of a fire detection or prevention system. We will discuss about those details in the upcoming slides. And the critical, most important fact of this is the cost. End of the day, every initiative boils down to the cost. You can give all the solutions in the world, but end of the day, when it comes to the finance, they will say, okay, this cost is very high, we cannot afford this. But with Hikvision HeatPro series cameras, we have resolved that as well. You can get the best price in the market. Trust me, this is more reasonable compared to other brands, and also highly effective. The product is high quality, you can get good results, and on top of that, you get the cost factor as well. Let's jump into the other areas and see what we have to offer in terms of this fire prevention and temperature camera product lineup. So let me move into the next slide. Here we have a very small video just to show you how this thermography series of thermal cameras can be used. So let's quickly look at the video.
Thermography series thermal cameras enable intelligent fire prevention through temperature exception alarms. Compared against infrared thermometers that use lasers for single point detection, Hikvision's handheld thermography cameras can more efficiently identify temperature anomalies with visualized image. When the surface temperature of an object is abnormal, the cameras will immediately trigger an alarm for timely troubleshooting. Using accurate temperature measurements powered by deep learning algorithms, Hikvision's thermography series cameras can largely reduce high temperature false alarms caused by vehicle engines and sunlight reflections. Thermal imaging is more and more applied in daily inspections for fire prevention. Hikvision's thermal and optical bispectral network positioning system detects fire threats quickly, accurately, and remotely. They can be widely used in indoor environments, such as data centers, warehouses, and outdoor environments, such as recycling centers, power stations, substations, and forests.
Okay, we have just shown a small part of the main video. So if you are interested in seeing the total video of our thermography series and usage and what products you can use, you can check out our YouTube channel and find the long video. Because of the time constraints, we are showing just a relevant part of that video. So let's go ahead into the upcoming slides, and here we are talking about the product range. So with these slides, you can get a clear idea about how to select the products and what products that you select. So Amanta, could you please help us to walk through the products lineup that we have?
Sure, Shanta. First, you can see the three different pictures, and except these pictures, we have another camera for thermal. It's PTZ range. In this picture, first two pictures, you can see the seems like very same, but the second pictures have two lenses. That's one lens is normal camera and second one is thermal camera lens. And next, I will jump to the common features of this thermal camera series. And the resolution is 160 to 120. And we have thermal lens, 2mm, 3mm, and 6mm thermal lens. And except that, we can detect line crossing, inclusion, and region entry and exit as well. And the temperature accuracy is plus or minus 80 degrees. Temperature measuring range is minus 20 to 150 degrees. And you can see the next frame rate is 25 frame per second. And I think Yasanta will explain better than this, isn't it, Yasanta?
Avanta, I think there are some other things that we can focus on here, especially support of bispectrum image fusion. That is a terrifying word to hear. People will think, what is this man is talking about? So let's break it down and get an idea. Bispectrum image fusion. Image fusion means combining two images, right? Two or more images. Bispectrum means two, because in temperature we can get a more of a heat map kind of image, and in optical lens we can get a clear image like what we see into our eye. So what we can do is we can combine those pictures, two pictures, into one video stream and maybe have more clear details. So since this kind of model, so you can see BS2TD, 2TD means temperature cameras, and 2.6, any model starts with 2.6 having the bispectrum support. Also we have the turret series with 1217. So you can see there are two lenses, as Amanda mentioned, one for the optical and one for the thermal. And by combining these two images, we can have a picture-in-picture view, or we call it bispectrum image fusion, which is you can get more details in the thermal picture. And this is normal working range, as there was a previous question from the audience. What is the working temperature of the device? So we can support from minus 40 degrees Celsius all the way up to 65 Celsius. So we have to keep in mind. So if you are fixing this in a high temperature area than 65 Celsius, you have to consult us, and there can be another special models which can tolerate in the high temperatures. So this is how normally the things are there. So you have the fire detection and the temperature measurement as well. So temperature measurement is supporting from minus 20 degrees to 150, which is a good range. Also, we consider after maybe 60 Celsius degrees or 70 is like a fire prone. So then definitely this can be covered through this. And also, Savanta mentioned, we have the focal length in the thermal cameras from 3mm, 6mm, 10mm, even we have certain models supporting 15mm. So you can see in order, like 3mm having the largest field of view. This is the horizontal field of view. So you can see up to 50 degrees with this lens. But the thing is, the range is less. So we'll look into those things. So how do you find what is the focal length of the thermal lens? It is easy. This 3 means 3mm, 6 means 6mm, 10 means 10mm. So just look at the model and you can get an idea about what is the focal length of the thermal lens. I think we can talk about little more about the features that we have in our HeatPro series, which is the cost-effective models. We have another question, Avanta. Meanwhile, we can try to answer that also. Are these cameras designed for surface temperature measurement? Or is there any option to measure temperature of a body behind any obstruct? So that is a very good question. So let's say there's a wall here, or maybe let's say it's a box. We have the temperature thermal camera fixed here, looking at this direction, and here somebody is lighting up a cigarette. Just ignore my drawing skills; they are really bad, and even bad with the computer. Now this cigarette is emitting the IR radiation. Can the IR radiation go through a surface? It cannot. Reflects but never comes to the camera. So according to the working principle, this kind of a scenario cannot be recognized. So definitely it has to be surface. So then comes the question, how do we trust this kind of a system for fire prevention? Then if there's a fire inside a storage area, how do we identify? That is also we have the answer for that. So normally when we cover a warehouse, for example, let's say we have walking aisles, right, and the racks. So normally what we do is we try to cover the two-dimensional view. And let's say inside a rack, inside a box, there's a fire. So this fire has started, but at the starting point, the radiation is not coming out. So in the traditional system, what we have is the smoke detector. If the smoke comes out, our camera can pick it. Number one. Once the fire starts, whatever the things around this fire area also get the temperature absorbed, right? So eventually, very soon, the surface area also will increase the temperature slowly. not solely actually, it will happen faster because fires spread faster, right? As soon as it reach the threshold of the threshold that we configure in the camera, the surface temperature increases that threshold, we can get the alert. So there are two ways to answer this question. One is cannot measure the temperature passing an obstacle, but for fire prevention scenario, one thing is you can detect smoke. Second one is you can detect once the temperature is reaching up to the surface, you can detect. So those are the two things that we normally suggest. And when we doing a project installation, we recommend to have the 2D coverage. There's more coverage to read the surface temperature. And let's look into the advantages. We already talked about some advantages of thermal camera, and here are more advantages, especially the better environment and adaptability. So if you talk about the temperature, as we mentioned earlier, the IR radiation is not affected by the light. So we don't really need to care about the light. Let's say there's strong light coming from something, or there's big smoke, or there's fog, there's heavy rain, or any sort of thing blocking the visibility. Still the temperature radiations can reach through these kind of obstacles. So it is very good for environment adaptability, especially if you are into border security or if you are doing some sort of a vessel detection. So nowadays, Sri Lanka is a little bit bothered by Indian fishermen coming into our region. So there's potential there. We can fix vessel detection into this and detect the vessels entering into our region. We can have that in our Navy boats. So those kind of situations. That's actually adaptable for more environments. And the bispectrum option, which I mentioned, is very important when we want to have a normal surveillance along with the temperature surveillance. And these cameras come in with onboard VCA. VCA means video content analysis. So without having been connected to any other NVR or any other analysis server, these cameras by itself can do edge processing and give you output. So if it is a fire that you want to detect, let's say you have a NVR. So normally traditional situation is NVR. This is connected through IP, and this feed is sent to the NVR. NVR only read the data and decides, okay, there is a fire, let's give the alarm. But what if this connection is disrupted? NVR will no longer receive the data. It will no longer give you an alert. But in our case, all the processing is done through this guy here. And he also can connect to a siren nearby from this itself. So even this connection is disrupted unless it is PoE. These cameras can be powered with PoE. So what we recommend is for you to definitely have the backup power. So either case, it can have a redundancy PoE and the power supply. So what will happen is if the power supply is dropped, PoE will take over. If the PoE is dropped, obviously power supply is there. The fact is the camera can identify the fire and soundly alert accordingly as a requirement. So that's more level of redundancy built into the system. So you have more assurance that the system is able to detect the fire and give an alarm on time. Let's ask the question why thermal cameras are ideal for the fire detection or fire prevention. Let's say a thermal camera, especially this kind of a bispectrum camera, which is having this optical channel as well, it is able to do a double verification because the optical channel can see the fire as we see it in our own eyes, right? So we had the VCA rules engineered into the camera, so it can use that rules to identify a fire, a visible fire. And the thermal camera first give the signal, alert the camera that, okay, the temperature is rising. Then we can also use the optical channel to do a double check-in to see whether it's a whether there's a visible fire. Irrespective of whether there's a visible fire or not, if the threshold is exceeded, definitely we can get the alert. So this is very ideal for fire prevention. And also, let's say you are getting all the feed into a monitoring room and security is there. So before you take action, you know exactly where to go because there's optical channel, right? So you can see, okay, this area, this block, here is the fire is happening. So you have to go exactly here. So that is highly useful, highly beneficial to have the optical channel and the thermal channel at the same time. So we can give the early warning, also do the fast alarming. We talked about the cost. Trust me, the cost is highly less. You can say by looking at this chart that we have put in it, small dollar bills and very big dollar bills for the brand. So definitely you can save the cost and get the desired outcome from these cameras. So definitely there's good potential in the market, especially in Sri Lanka, to introduce these cameras. Your imagination is your limit. You can talk to any customer. They might have, even people are having server rooms. They want to monitor the server to temperature. So you can suggest these kind of cameras for those kind of scenarios. Fire prevention, perimeter security. So likewise, you can give so many options to using these thermal detection cameras. So it is cost effective on top of that. So that is another good reason. So customer will be very confident in going in for a solution like this, and he can get the value for his investment. Also, we have certain cases like, especially in industrial areas, some machinery, heavy machinery work in the area. So these machines can generate the temperature itself, which can give you false alarm. So for that, we have another thing called forklift truck false alarm filter. That is a feature built into these cameras. So it can detect the truck or forklift and avoid alerting those things for as a fire alarm. So you can see now we also showcasing here one of our PT set, temperature PT set camera, which is also bispectrum again, and having some sort of higher focal length. So you can go up to 60 meter, 120 meter, 180 meter distance. Let's see what is this distance. Why there are three distances? That is confusing, right? So let's clear that out first. So you can see the fire source detection distance, and we have a surface of 10 by 10 centimeter. So if the fire or the temperature area is spreading, if that area reach 10 by 10 space, then up to 60 meters it can detect. So let's say from the camera in 60 meters, you have a 10 by 10 centimeter surface, which is increasing the temperature gradually. When the temperature past the threshold we set, it can generate alert. But you can see the more surface is getting more and more bigger, the range is high. So depending on your requirement, you can do certain calculations and see what is the most suitable. Also, you can see when the focal length is low, the detection range is also getting low. So if it is a warehouse or some sort of a enclosed area, you can go for a lesser focal length. If it is a wide area, maybe waste dump or something, some big area, you can go for a higher focal length, or you can go for a PT set which has a high focal length. So with that, at the same time, these cameras are capable of filtering the heat generated by a forklift or a truck. So you can see there are two pictures. Before here, you can see this area is shown as very hot because this area is white. But after we have enabled the forklift truck false alarm filter, this you can see it is not that white. The readings are properly in green color. You can see our reading, the VC or the OSD, the on-screen display also showing the temperature readings on the footage itself. So you can see if it is red, definitely it is above the threshold. If it is green, it is below the threshold. You can see clearly see the difference. So this is also highly useful when it comes to implementing this kind of solutions in a industrial zone where high like machinery like this continuously work on the floor. We are going to look at a scenario of a warehouse. One thing is we want to locate the risk. Warehouses are big, so when there's a fire alarm coming in, if it is a traditional fire system, we only know, okay, this sensor, smoke sensor picked a smoke or fire. That's all you know, but you don't know exactly what point where it is originating. You have to send some person, then look at the situation, then only decide how to take action. So this happens everything in a flash. So it is really difficult. But again, having the optical channel here, you can see it remotely and be prepared when you go to the location. And also normally for a fire to start, if you see these comparisons, the thermal camera can even detect the temperature before the smoke comes in. If the heat is high, definitely he can identify the heat source. But obviously the smoke detector comes after that. He can identify only after the smoke is sensed through the sensor. And also we have the optical smoke and fire detector, means the using the optical channel with the AI algorithm to identify whether there's a smoke or fire. That is also the fire or smoke has to come to some certain range. And the optical fire detector, which is not smoke, only the fire detector. So it is at the last stage. So on top of these all mechanisms, you can see thermal camera is the best, which can give the fastest notification for you when there's a fire. In order to test that, we have done a small comparison using HeatPro camera as well as a smoke sensor. So you can see there's a smoke sensor and a HeatPro camera. There's a small video that we can play. Before playing that video, I want to draw your attention to this. The HeatPro series camera that we are using is DS2TV12173PA. The distance 4 meters. We can detect the fire within 4 seconds, but the smoke detector takes more than 2 minutes to detect it. So that 2 minutes each, it can be a huge damage to your property. So now you can convince the customer why they need HeatPro, because the traditional smoke system is useful, but when you detect and take the action, most of your things will be damaged. And also there is a possibility of failure we have to consider. On top of the traditional fire detection system, you can go throw in a little bit of a HeatPro series cameras as well, and you are ensured that you are getting the alert faster and you are getting better output. So let's look at the video. So already our temperature camera has picked the fire, but you see after 2 minutes later only the smoke alarm is getting triggered. So this is the beauty of using the temperature camera, where you can have the faster results. In a warehouse, definitely this can be used as a early awareness tool, that device that can prevent a fire. As soon as the high temperature is detected, the alarm can be triggered. Not only that, we can send that alert to the control room and notify the security guard at the same time. Faster response can be given to minimize whatever the damage. So definitely this is more reliable solution and more effective solution compared to the traditional fire detection. Definitely we have to talk about the field of view. Field of view means the angle that you can see. If you fix a camera, let's say this is a warehouse. You fix a camera here. You fix a camera here, and if the field of view is like this, maybe it's say 90 degrees. This one is 90 degrees. These areas will be blind spots, right? You can see only these areas. So like that, the field of view is very critical when you are deciding a project or planning a project. So just to look at, it all depends on the focal length. We have 2 millimeter, 3 millimeter, 6 millimeter, and 10 millimeter. So you can see when the focal length is increasing, field of view is decreasing. Okay. So if you want to cover more area, you can go for a less focal length model. But the thing you have to keep in mind is the distance is also getting less. So you can decide accordingly as per the actual site situation. So if it is an area that the fire prone area or whatever the area that you want to monitor is within 30 meters, or you can bear up to 30 by 30 surface temperature, you can go for a 2 millimeter. Or sometimes you can, depending on your scenario, maybe 3 millimeter will be more suitable. And you have to keep in mind that your field of view, horizontal and vertical, here we have showcased. Our most important one is the horizontal, because we want to see horizontally. So you can play around with the focal lengths and the actual layout of your site requirement and come up with the most suitable focal length camera. Based on that, you can decide what sort of model that you want to utilize for that particular project. Going ahead with our slides, I think finally we have to talk about the solution topology. So in the solution topology, you can see what we have discussed is here. Especially we have the temperature cameras connected to a PoE switch. Also these cameras can be used as for perimeter protection. From the NVR, you can connect it to a siren or a display and take the alarm, or even link it to alarm panel. Not only that, from the camera directly, from the camera itself, you can connect to a siren. So if the customer asking every camera you need a siren, you can do that. Also, if you want to connect this to a alarm panel, you can do that, and give zones for each camera and identify exactly by the zone, and maybe go up to the telephone call or SMS up to that level. Or you can simply use HIC Central or IVMS 400, so you can receive the alerts. And also this can support HIC Connect app as well, so you can over the internet, even if you are not at the location, you can still receive the alert. So I think with that, we have covered more details about the technical parts and how we can select the products, how we can suggest the products according to the customer situation or the site situation. I think it's time for us to know where can we apply these products. Now I know you have got a clear idea. You might have be getting, okay, I can fix into this kind of scenario, but let's look at, I invite Avanta to help out to show us the application scenarios.
Actually, in this picture, you can see where can use our thermal camera products. First, we talk about this in our early slide. You can use it in entry and exit and workshops and warehouse and the parameters and the control room. You can, as you can see, you can use this application with these scenarios. Isn't it, Asantha?
Definitely, Avant. I think to add a little more explanation into it, our viewers might be wondering what is the purpose of using entry and exit, the thermal camera in entry and exit. So if you remember, we can use thermal cameras for temperature screening, especially when there's high human traffic entering to a particular location, and you cannot use the handheld thermometer to scan by one. You can just simply have a thermal camera and ask them to just walk by, and our cameras are capable of detecting the forehead temperature. And definitely workshops where there is probability to generate fires, and warehouse and perimeter is definitely for security. And especially at dark times, you cannot see, you can easily monitor with temperature, radiation, and the temperature cameras. And the beauty of this is all these systems that you propose to maybe a facility or any customer can be managed centrally as a unified system. So I think with this slide, Avanta, our viewers can get a very clear idea about how they can propose this kind of temperature detection cameras to a customer, right, Avanta?
Yes, definitely, something.
Let's dive into the another slide. Flammable and explosive material management, I think, which is a very good case, because now if you see, mostly in the recycle stations, landfills, scrapyards, definitely battery warehouse, this kind of fires can be happen, especially in the recycling. So you can actually target these kind of customers in the region in Sri Lanka. So you can educate them and present them these solutions, and definitely these solutions are worthwhile for them to have. Definitely when especially the scrap yards, battery warehouses, recycling stations, there's high probability to generate fire. So definitely we can use our models to generate the temperature measurement, and definitely not only for the material management areas, perimeter protection can be used for high security areas. We can prevent the intrusion even in total darkness, and also comes with the deep learning algorithm to reduce the false alarm. So if it is even it is a construction site where heavy machinery are working, or if it is there's forklifts, you can still use the bispectrum camera and use the power of AI to filter out these false alarms. So that's the beauty of it. We are just giving you one example, flammable and explosive material management, and this is not only the one example. As we mentioned, you can recommend these solutions for any case. So here we are just showcasing few of our successful cases, Avanta, in the region. Actually, the thing is, in Sri Lanka also we have certain projects already done using fire detection and fire cameras, but at this point we are not able to reveal it because of the customer privacy matters. But it has been very successful in Sri Lanka as well. So without fear, with confidence, you can propose these solutions to the customer. So as you can see in this successful case, we have implemented this in Korea. We are in a manufacturing plant using DS2TD2617-6 cameras and IUMS with the I-series NVR. And the customer requirement is to measure the temperature of the waste dump, electrical facilities, also have some sort of perimeter protection in the forest edge surrounding factory 24/7 to avoid generation of fire, and definitely getting the real-time alarm. So what greater damages can be prevented proactively. Another successful case is in Turkey. We have implemented this in a woven yard factory. Customer is using this to trigger an alarm when any machinery or anywhere the temperature exceeds 70 degrees, where there is a system that they are using the fire extinguishing system. So if you can see, if you know the industrial situations, some heavy machinery already comes with the mechanisms to prevent the fire. There may be water jets or some sort of any automated systems. So what we can do is we can integrate this kind of systems into our fire prevention system. Fire is detected, camera can send the signal to that machine, and machine can automatically take action to prevent the fire. We can also even use that in machinery which are having the automatic fire extinguishing systems. So through the alarm output, we can simply connect it and get it activated. And also another use case is in Denmark, where we have used that in waste and energy plant fire prevention. So definitely in the energy plants, people are burning waste to generate fire and generate electricity. But when you are storing the waste, you have to make sure that in the storage areas, the fire is not happening. So for that, we can also recommend this kind of solutions. Let's jump into the practical session, and Tarindu, show us your gears. We are very eager to see your stuff first. Maybe you have a temperature camera today with you, right?
Yes, of course. As we mentioned in the PPT, we have our temperature reading camera. So
now what we are going to do is, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to log into the web interface. As we all know, now most of our products are coming with a web interface. So first things first, you have to assign our IP address, activate the device. Those things I believe you have an idea. So once you have activated the device and assigned the IP, you can simply use the Internet Explorer and type that IP and log into the camera. And Tarindu, I see when I log into the camera, it's just like an NVR. There are two cameras in it, right?
Yes, there are
Because,
two cameras. Why? Yeah, sometimes you can tell.
Yes, of course. I think maybe our audience can tell. Why do we
Yes,
have
sir.
two cameras
Yes.
in a one camera when we log in? It's like NVR, right?
Yes, why there is one camera, one IP. Why there is two cameras showing in here? And also we can view those two cameras.
One is for the optical lens and one is for the thermal lens, right?
Yes, right. There is two camera. First, one is for the optical lens and other is for the normal view.
Tarindu, why don't you
Actually,
show us a little bit about the configuration? We can go to the configuration page and just show them the model that we are using for today for the demonstration. So you can go to the configuration. Yes, DS2TD 26173PA 3mm focal length. So short distance, good for short distance, but having a wide field of view, right?
Yes, correct. We are going to the initial setup first. Yasanta, we need to select what is for the what kind of things we use this camera. So especially first we go to the system maintenance and need to select VCA resource type. So there is two type of VCA resource. Yasanta, what do you think? What is we need to select for our scenario?
I see the word fire detection. I'm going for it because today we are talking about fire detection.
Yes,
So we actually, if we are going ahead for some sort of perimeter detection or some sort of that kind of functionality, I think we can go in for temperature measurement plus behavior analysis. But here today, our motive is to set up this camera for fire detection. So definitely it has to be temperature measurement plus fire detection, right?
Yes, correct. After initially we select and saved, camera will be restart and come again to the web page. Already I selected and saved, so going to restart. So after that, Yasanta, if we go into live view, we need to see some details in web page like max temperature and minimum temperature. For that kind of thing, we need to enable for it from the setting. This is only for the web view. When we go into local, then here is a few settings for that. We need to enable display rule information and this radio button, and also display fire source information. You need to tick both two of these, and display temperature info, and also display rule info. These both of need to select as yes. Then hit save.
And so I think Tarindu, so far what we have done is we have enabled that VCA resource configuration and enabled that in the live view, so we can see maximum minimum temperature in the live view, right, when we view from the web page.
Yes, correct. Next step is we use this camera for recording video, and also we use max and minimum temperature for our fire detection scenarios. In that kind of scenario, in here setting display VCA info by player for video. If you use player, it's only showing the live view. There is no that information encode to the video. You must select it as a video, then hit save. We record this video in NVR or in this live view or any kind of thing. This temperature details, max temperature and minimum temperature, also recorded with the video.
Nice. And Tarindu, now we have covered two important things when we start.
Yeah.
Just to recap, we have to set up temperature measurement and fire detection in the VCA resource configuration. Then we enable the local settings in case if you want to see the temperature readings in the web page. Then definitely we change the video stream to video, display VCA by to video, so we can have everything embedded inside the video. So whenever we record it or whenever we live it from an NVR, we can still see those details in the stream. So I think next thing we can show something about our display settings, how the thermal camera looks like, and maybe Tarindu, how we can use the different color things, because I don't like this black and white. Maybe we can give more light into it by using other themes, right?
Yes, correct. So regarding this, we need to select camera 2 because camera 2 is the thermal camera and camera 1 is the normal optical camera. So we select camera 2, then going to image enhancement. Then here Yasanta setting called palettes, like color palettes as we using for the paint. Here we can select few kind of types. We can use black hot, that means higher temperature values showing in the black, and white hot means higher temperature value showing in the white. And what about this view? I think this is
I think it's more like user friendly, like I can see like in the fusion one where the temperature is high and where the temperature is low, and in more visualized way, right?
Yes, correct. So let's go with that one. After that, Yasanta, we can check picture in picture. I think we mentioned in the PPT initial training.
Yes, we mentioned that we can have the that big word, right? Bispectrum image fusion, right?
Yes, correct. In here, but you see there is both images not synced correctly. You see, they are going to some side and like that. So the reason is I'm putting this camera within 0.5 meter, but this fusion distance is 5 meters. So we just hit up to 0.5 meter, then click yes. Now it's okay. Now it's showing the normal view. And also if we don't need to this overlap view, we select normal, then we can save it. Now it's normal view. This is only thermal view, but we are going with the overlay view. This is for the basic detail setting for the image related to image section.
Yes.
Can we
Now I want to get into business and see how we can do real configuration stuff, right? Now we have set up, like, we have beautified the video feed and got some colors into it, but the real thing is we have to configure the events, right?
Yes, correct. For that one, we go into event and go to basic event. I'm starting from the audible alarm because other things, motion detection, video tampering, we already doing and mentioned that details in the previous training videos. So
I think these are very common to all the cameras, right? Motion detection, video tampering, those are very common, I guess. So we don't need to cover these things. We'll cover the specific things for related to this temperature camera, Tarindu.
Yasanta, can you tell how we need to set up in this audible alarm output section?
Yes, I think I know how to do it. When you select the audible alarm output, there are few options, Tarindu. I think first one is the alarm type. So we have to configure the alarm type properly, whether you want to have an alarm for temperature measurement, smoking, or fire detection. So temperature measurement is using the thermal camera to identify the temperature, and if it is above the threshold, it can give an audible alarm because built-in, there's a built-in speaker in the camera, right?
Yes, correct.
And depending on your scenario, if it is a fire detection project, definitely we encourage you to use the temperature measurement. That is the most suitable one. We recommend that. Then you can select the sound type, and there are previous number of warnings that you can have, pre-configured warnings. You can select one of the warnings listed in the warning list and test it if you want. So currently we have only one, right?
Yes.
We have the option to feed in a custom audio. So if you want to have your local language, you can record it and you can upload your local language file as well. So for the moment, we will use the default one in the system, and you can configure the alarm times. I guess how many times this should be repeated when there is an alarm trigger and the volume. But that is itself not enough. You have to configure the schedule. This kind of a project, definitely we don't want to make a mistake. 24/7 we want to monitor. So definitely make sure if you are getting audible alarm output, you're enabling that in the camera. Make sure that your schedule is set up for 24/7. So simply you can configure one day of the week and copy the entire thing to the week. So now we are good to go. Our audible alarm is configured. How about the flashing alarm light output, Tanidu? I think that is also something we can use, right?
Yes, that also same setting. For the white light mode, we can select solid or flashing, and also same as the flashing duration, seconds, we can select, and also flashing frequency, we can select, and brightness, and same as previous setting, we must select the arming schedule as Yasanta said, because this is critical when we install fire detection. It must work in 24/7.
In other alarm times, we can give some exception, especially if it is a shop and if you are doing some sort of motion detection. Sometimes you can disable shop opening hours and give the motion detection only when the shop is closed. But the fire, you cannot have any exception. You have to monitor it 24/7. So just make sure if you are using these features, especially if you are enabling, we recommend to enable the flashing alarm and audible alarm if it is available in your module that you select. Then make sure that the schedule is set for 24/7. Then you can ensure that it is going to work 24/7. Another thing is the alarm output, right?
Yes, last thing is this one. This one mainly used for, we need to use external alarm, big siren, big sound, or need to flash few lights for warning like that. We can use inbuilt alarm output, relay output, and there is two alarm output, 1 and 2. You can select any of them and set delay time, and also you can select output type normally open or normally close. And then same as other setting, we need to select schedule. So we can.
So Taranju, now connecting this kind of a third party siren or let's say a strobe light, I think should be pretty straightforward. Normally these things simply operate when you give 12 volt or 24 volt power, simply they operate, right? So this output is working as a relay, but make sure that if you are having incompatible voltage rating, just to purchase another third party relay and run it through. If you need more details about how to connect the relay, just write to us on support@hic-portal.lk. We'll happy to share you a guide on how to connect a third party siren or strobe light. So with that, I think we have configured all the basic events, right? I think today you have a siren with you as well, if I'm not
yes,
mistaken.
let's for that. Yes, Anta, if you need to test your configured output third-party device, here you say this is alarm output is off. We can manually check this manual alarm output. Now,
I hear you, alarm.
Yes. Now I think alarm is working.
But the major part is still not done. No, we have just configured audible alarm output, flashing alarm output, and alarm output, but we have not told the system, okay, you have to give these outputs when the fire is when there's a fire or when there's something high temperature. So there's two ways that we can do is one is the smart event built into the events, right?
We are going to smart event and we can select the dynamic fire source detection. In there, in that section, channel is camera 2 is thermal camera, and we need to enable that detection part. And also fire source detection, we need to select what kind of thing, if dynamic fire or smoky mode. So mostly using smoky mode, so I just demo in the smoky mode. And also you can use the sensitivity as based on the location, and we can save it. And Yasanta, do you think we just save it this work?
No, I think you have to also configure the arming schedule here and the linkage methods, definitely.
Yes.
Otherwise, it will not work.
Yes. So we need to do same as the arming schedule and also linkage method. For in linkage method, I will select the flash alarm and also hit the alarm output.
Taranju, now I have a question. Now let's say in the basic event we configured the flashing alarm and audible warning, those things, and even the alarm output. So what if we don't configure it and directly put a tick here? It will not work, right?
Yes, correct.
Because that also have a schedule and that has to be configured and linked. Then only when it is activated from this smart event, it will just verify its schedule and just run the operation. So you have to make sure that you have to follow in the basic event. If you are using these kind of linkage methods in the smart event, you have to make sure that those are enabled in the basic event and properly, especially in the fire detection, 24/7 schedules are created. I think Taranju, now we can test the smoke, right?
Yes, give me a few seconds to prepare it.
I know that you are not a person who smokes, so definitely it will not be a cigarette, right?
Yes, yes, correct.
Nice.
I think working fine. It is.
Yes, you have used a smoking stick.
Yes.
I think it is very responsive, right? As long as he saw the smoke, I saw the flashlight, I heard the siren, I heard the audible output as well. So it is pretty amazing, the response time. So what we have done is, Tarindu, I think we in the smart event, we have configured the dynamic fire detection, but this is not the temperature per se. It is using the optical channel and AI to detect the fire and the smoke. But not only this, we can go up to the temperature level to monitor and set threshold and monitor specific temperature levels, right?
Yes, correct. So let's go for the temperature measurement. This is mainly we are using for the fire prevention. Firstly, we go to this temperature measurement setting, and in basic setting tab, also camera 2 is the selected channel. First, same as other events, we need to enable this one because this setting normally not enable. First configuration we need to enable it. Then we need minimum temperature and max temperature. We select that part also. And if you need temperature in optical channel, that also possible. We can take that one also. That's all for this setting. And what do you think forklift filter and reflect light filter.
I think those are for false alarm filter, what we discussed on the slides.
I am not enabling it because I do not have forklift.
So whenever I think these settings are enabled, you also need to specially restart the VCA for them to be applicable. So you can see the restart VCA button. So just keep that in mind before you test. Just click on this restart. So it will start the VCA process.
And in second tab, in advanced setting, we can configure distance and pre-alarm threshold and filtering time and alarm threshold. Yes, on the pre-alarm threshold is before the high alarm temperature, we can get pre-alarm temperature. That means we can, if we any point temperature going to high, but before danger, we can get the alarm for that. And after second threshold, also we can get the alarm.
Nice. So this is like a warning, right? So we know the normal temperature. Let's say it's a warehouse. Normal temperature is 40. And in any case, if it is increasing more than maybe 50, then we can get a output, but not do the big bang siren thing and just do everything. But we just can get a small notification, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So for the pre-alarm output and alarm output, you can select the output that you want to do. And I think these emissivity settings, I think basically depends on if you are doing more related to the temperature screening. If you are using for temperature screening, you can update. If you are using a black body, you can do the certain changes. But for this fire detection, we recommend you to update the distance accordingly, the maximum distance that you see in the range from the camera to the edge of the warehouse, if it is a warehouse, and the thresholds you can update accordingly. And filtering time means like how long it should wait after the temperature is detected. Maybe 1-2 seconds if you want to give it a delay. But again, for fire detection, we should not tolerate any delays, so you can keep it as 0 and correctly select the outputs, and that's it, Tani, right? And we had a question from the audience, Tani, that about the installation environment, how, like, if it is too hot, what will happen if it will damage the device. So we saw in the slide there's a working temperature. On this page also we can see the device temperature.
Yes.
So you can easily check if it is not suitable for your installation. Here you will see the device temperature, so you can get an idea whether it's a suitable environment or not.
And also here, shield region. And next tab, can you describe a little bit for this?
Yes.
section?
Now here, let's say we are fixing that. I'll take an example, Tarindu. We are fixing this in a lab. In the lab, there is an oven. Ovens people are using, and it is getting hot. But you don't want the fire alarm when the people are using the oven, because it's normal, right?
Yes.
So what you can see is that oven area, you can enable the shield, and that will not be treated as a fire alarm. So if you want to enable that kind of a shield, you can use the shield area and enable it.
You will not enable for now. And last thing is linkage method. Same as other setting, we need to schedule the arming schedule and select the linkage method. We select this one. This triggering record for we can record a video when triggering. This is alarm input, not output. So I do not select that one and hit save. That's all.
Just a fire, don't put your desk on fire, Tarindu.
Sure. Open.
Wow, I see that is pretty much responsive, right? As long as maybe Tarindu, you can bring your hand to the view and then light the lighter. Just our viewer can see. Okay, now it is not lighted. Okay, we can light it now. Wow, that is. I don't see even a 1 second delay, right? It is very fast.
Yes, I think it's very fast than the smoke sensor.
Yeah. That evidence is enough for you to recommend this product for your end users. So we'll be uploading this video to YouTube very soon, and then you can rewatch it again, and you can also use this video as a reference to show it to your customers to convince them to purchase this kind of a system. And with that, Tarindu, I think we have come to the end of the practical session.
Thank you all. Thank you, Dave.